This morning, we are taking you to St. Johnsville, New York. The OESJ Central School District has really taken advantage of Sweethearts and Heroes. And Adam Heroth, the superintendent there of the entire school district, is our guest this morning. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning, JD. I'm doing well.
I'm so glad to
Pleasure to be on today.
I am so glad to have you, my man. I have heard so much about you from Tom and from Rick. These guys say that you are the example superintendent of all of their schools who really gets it more than anyone else. You are dialed in to, well, as we said, the world's number one youth leadership team. I mean, kudos to you and your staff everywhere at all your schools for getting involved with them.
I appreciate that, JD, and it's high praise coming from the team at Sweethearts and Heroes, particularly Tom. But I think you just hit the nail on the head. The credit goes to my staff and my students, and the community here has really embraced the Sweethearts and Heroes program. And my job as superintendent is to find good programs to provide to our students to have the best experience possible. But once I do my job to provide the program, I really rely on my staff and my students to embrace it, and they've done so. So kudos to them, and I honestly, all the credit goes to them for doing it. And I'm here with Mike Lewis, my school resource officer, and kudos to him too. And I give him a ton of credit because he's really, without being asked to do so, jumped on board and really embraced the program and really helped to spearhead it in the district. And we couldn't be any more grateful for the relationship that we have with Tom and the team at Sweethearts and Heroes. It is a game-changing program. I've been doing this for 24 years. I'd like to still consider myself a fairly young man, but old school at the same time. And in my 24 years, and it's not even close, I have not found a program that I think reaches the hearts and minds of kids and staff alike over my time in the business. And couldn't be any more grateful to have them as a partner.
I want you to tell us about the superintendent's conference day on the beginning of September. What happened? What was that all about?
So, and I'm glad you brought that up. We traditionally, and I'll be honest, going back to my time as a teacher and my time as a building level administrator, now superintendent, superintendent's conference days are kind of boring. If I'm being honest, you do your standard things that you kind of have to do, which I think everybody understands, like trainings and, the welcome back message that at times I've taken that hour and filled it with whatever I needed to fill it with. I'd like to think I was motivational, JD, but I'm sure that's in the eyes of the beholder, the people listening to me. But we really wanted to do something different. We're really focusing on three words I focused on in my more brief opening day message before we kind of got into our event with Sweethearts and Heroes, and that was teamwork, trust, and relationships. And ultimately, the involvement of Sweethearts and Heroes was to really show my team that we do trust them, and we are willing to work as a team, and we want the same from them. And really, it focused on building those relationships. And we, after my brief opening day message, we went outside and did some fun things. I mean, having 180 staff members outside in a big circle, all running around, honestly acting like kids, which was the purpose and the point. Laughing, having fun, smiling. You saw people partnering with each other that normally probably wouldn't, whether it's an elementary and a high school teacher, a bus monitor and a teacher, a bus monitor and administrator. I mean, it was really a unique situation to allow people to build those relationships and get to trust each other. That was the fun part. Tom and the great Rick Yarish gave a wonderful keynote presentation in our auditorium that I think really touched our staff. And then Tom and his team broke down into circles with our staff, particularly our teaching staff. And the only word I could use there was powerful. People coming out of those circles really moved, and then the momentum you see after that. I mean, I have teachers knocking down my door begging me for more circle and begging me for more Sweethearts and Heroes because they see the benefit. So really my intention was to just provide a day that was different, and I would even use the word unorthodox intentionally to prove to my team that we're in this together.
Yeah.
We're doing this together. And I do consider Tom and the Sweethearts and Heroes team to be part of our team. They're not a third party contractor to me. They're not a group of people that come in here on a occasional basis and do some cool stuff. They're 100% part of the OSJ family, and they always will be. And it's, like I said, it's been a game changer for us.
And Sweethearts and Heroes is going to be with you guys for the entire school year?
Yeah, so the community ambassador program we really jumped into this year, and we're lucky to have Josiah McKeon with us 1 day a week. He's here on Fridays, pretty much every week the entire school year, in both our elementary and our high school. And in our elementary, this is a merged district, so the 712 building is down in St. Johnsville, where my office is located. But we then have our pre-K through 6 elementary building is up in Oppenheim, which is about a 7-8 minute drive. So certainly connected, but definitely, you have that obstacle of the distance between the two buildings. But Josiah does go up. She was up there last Friday and spent a substantial amount of time in our elementary school working with our elementary students. So it's just one of the many things that we're doing, and having them here every day to help us drive the message, to avoid what Tom likes to call voltage drop, is going to be a key component in continuing to move this forward.
And I don't need to tell you, because not only do you know, but the gentleman sitting next to you knows that hopelessness and bullying and suicide is real, and it's right under your nose every
Yep.
single day.
Yep. And we talk a lot, in education, whether it be from the state education department down to individual school districts, about the plight that we have with dealing with mental health issues. And you couldn't be any more right, JD. It's a reality that is very difficult to deal with, but something that can absolutely not be ignored. And districts have tried a multitude of things, very successfully, mind you, to combat that crisis, because it is nothing short of a crisis. And we're doing a multitude of things here as well. But again, I speak to the relationships that are being built, and the impact that the Sweethearts and Heroes program is having. We've just found it to be the thing that really works for us, and is allowing kids to open those doors to having conversations. Because again, I go back to that word relationships. I talked about it opening day. It could be something as simple as a bus driver telling a kid that's getting off a bus, "Have a good day, kiddo." Or, a kid coming through the lunch line to punch their 4-digit code in the system to buy their lunch.
Yeah.
And have the lunch lady sitting on the stool that says, "How are you doing today?" Or "Have a great day" when they walk away. Little moments like that could be all that kid needed to have that bright spot that they were looking for, and to pull them out of that dark spot. And, that's why I continuously in the district focus on those relationships and those small moments. They don't have to be those big, sit downs or conversations. Sometimes it's those tiny little things and those small moments that make all the difference in the life of a kid on a daily basis. And I think this program and what it's teaching, not just our students, but our adults, is really allowing them to understand the importance of those moments. And I think those are the big difference makers, because there are crises right around the corner every single day with a number of kids. And those are the moments that matter, JD.
What's in the budget for resource officers? Do you have enough of them? Can you not get enough of them? Have you figured out how to clone Mike Lewis?
That's a wonderful thought, a scary thought at the same time. But we in this district, I'll answer your question first. The budget's unlimited. There's no amount of money that any school district can ever put on safety, and any school district that feels the need to put a budgetary item on safety in their schools is missing the point, in my opinion. But it doesn't matter to me. Like, the budget to me is irrelevant. We have two wonderful, experienced, respected leaders in the law enforcement community that walk our halls every day. Officer Lewis is here with us in the junior senior high school on a daily basis, and we have Officer Barnes at the elementary school. And again, they both bring a litany of law enforcement experience with them to the table. But again, I go back, and I'm probably going to keep revisiting it, because it's what matters to me. But if you watch what our school resource officers do on a daily basis, they're not just walking around checking doors. They do, don't get me wrong, they're focusing on safety. But if you watch these two gentlemen in action, their goal and their focus every day is reaching kids and building relationships. And you can't put a budgetary line item on that. You just can't. There's
Yeah.
some things we have to in our world, JD, but that is not one thing that I'm ever interested in trying to make a tough decision on a budgetary item. That is a priority of mine. And I will commend our county here in Montgomery County. Sheriff Jeff Smith has done an amazing job of supporting school resource officers. Ours happen to be employed by our local St. Johnsville Police Department that works closely with the Montgomery County Sheriff's Department. But if you look throughout the region, there are Montgomery County sheriffs posted in Fonda, Fultonville, Amsterdam, and Fort Plain. And then Canajoharie and OESJ use their local PD to put their resource officers in their schools. So it's great to work in a county where it's supported. And my elementary school's in Fulton County. I commend Sheriff Rich Giardino in Fulton County for supporting us and allowing a St. Johnsville PD officer from Montgomery County to actually be posted in a school in his county, in Fulton County. He's been a wonderful resource and ally in this program as well. So having that support from our law enforcement agencies is invaluable, and that's something that we take very seriously at OESJ.
Officer Lewis, good morning to you. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I'm guessing that you would feel very strongly that your post, and I'm curious to know how long you've been at it, but what you're doing every single day is light years beyond a job, light years beyond a paycheck.
It is. You got a couple different things there. So we got I've been in law enforcement going on 25 years now. I've left one agency, joined St. Johnsville Police Department and Superintendent Heroth here in a school. And and I often joke, I don't know what I do every day, and I don't know why they keep asking me to come back, because I come to work and I have fun and I look forward to coming in here and seeing the kids, and I realize that it's probably even deeper and beyond what I could imagine. So, and again, what do I do all day? I'll be honest with you, I don't know. I haven't figured out yet what I do all day, but I do come into the school. I do interact with the kids. I think communication is key. Assisting the kids in talking with one another and understanding one another, and finding different avenues to heal their wounds, so to speak. So it's been an eye-opening experience, and I'll go so far as to say it's probably the most rewarding time of my career, seeing a different side of the world. We'll call it that way.
When you say rewarding, I'm guessing that in your tenure, you've had a couple of students who maybe look at you as, or have looked at you as, their enemy, and maybe that's been flipped around at some point. Is there an example of that at all?
Well, and I'll tell you, there's been. I just started the school resource officer role, retiring from another agency, and then coming to work in this role was probably never on my radar. And I don't know if that's Superintendent Heroth that saw something years back when I wasn't working in the school and was, ending my road life. And he's convinced me to give this a try. And that's the most rewarding thing, is seeing the change. And, it's one of those, and I'll say everybody in law enforcement probably gets into this job for, to feel like they can make a change and feel like they're going to be the difference. I think that's what drives us to be in this law enforcement first responder world. And burnout is real. And until I got into the school, I realized that actually what I was craving and working for my entire career, that change, I'm able to do it at this level. Instead of waiting for something to happen and respond like I've done, is to try and get in front of it and build the relationships with those students that quite frankly, may or may not have, law enforcement connections, positive law enforcement connections in their life. And, there's a couple examples, and it would be foolish of me and wrong of me to even give you names, but there's two or three that stand out in my tenure here that I'd like to think that we may have flipped them 180 degrees to think that there actually is hope. And it's one of those things that, again, that's the rewarding part, is realizing that I didn't realize what I needed until I got it and didn't realize I needed it, if that makes any sense to you.
It makes a whole hell of a lot of sense. I can completely relate to what you're saying. These kids, a lot of the time, the first face that they're seeing in their day is that school bus driver as an adult, and after that, it's probably you, maybe even before an administrator.
Correct. And that's in starting that day off right is paramount to these students having a successful day. Anything from I know a lot of the kids here in the school, they'll see me in the hallway now, and I currently don't have it with me, so I'm worried about walking back to my office and not having a tennis ball in my hand. Because that's lately it's been a tennis ball, and it's amazing the connections you can make with something as simple as a tennis ball. They are expecting me to have a tennis ball whenever I see them, and
what's up with that?
It may or may not be tossed in the hallway back and forth when we're going back and forth, and to them it's just a tennis ball. To me, it's a tool that reaches no other.
Interesting. That's so cool.
Different avenues that start the conversation piece.
What do you think of Sweethearts and Heroes, the impact that they've had?
I can't speak highly enough about it. I wish I was qualified enough to speak on what Tom can do, but until you experience Tom and his staff, giving that hope and giving the students an outlet to communicate, it's communication. It's the root of all evils. Whether it's in the school, in the education system, quite frankly, in law enforcement, in the real world, if you can't communicate, that's 99% of our problems can be alleviated if people would communicate. Yeah. And I think that's, to me, what I see Sweethearts and Heroes is doing is teaching our future to communicate with one another and talk and understand,
There is a ton of stuff here that we're unpacking that is light years beyond your badge.
Mm-hmm.
And you're bringing that every single day, and that is remarkable. Adam, what's on the menu there at your school? What can we expect throughout the year? I know that you said you've got Josiah every Friday, which, man, you guys are so lucky. That guy, I think he walks on water. I mean, I just adore Josiah and his brother. I mean, my God, these guys are just incredible. But what can we expect? You got a guy that's right next to you, Mike, who has to be the good guy, the bad guy, but regardless of either one enforcing the rules, he has to earn respect and also really wear empathy on the shirt sleeve every hour of the day, every minute of the day.
And that's a key word you just used. I was just thinking it a minute ago. And I think it's a big component of of the Sweethearts and Heroes program is teaching empathy. And Tom says it all the time. It's one skill that we have really failed to focus on. You know, with a newer generation of kids that are just dealing with things that, I mean, Mike and I, when I was in high school, I think our only social media communication tool was AOL Instant Messenger.
Yeah.
And I don't even think I ever really got good at using that.
I did.
But you got good at it. But there are some these phones and the stuff kids are dealing with. It's really difficult. And I still say it, like, a lot of times I'll send an email and follow up with an immediate phone call. And sometimes the person's perplexed, like, you just emailed me. Why are you calling me? And I'm like, because you can't judge tone in an email. Like, I may to that person's reading that email, and there's about 17 different ways they could interpret what I just wrote. And a lot of times, if it deals with something that I believe there should be a certain level of sympathy or empathy behind, I want to make sure they feel it and hear it from me. I prefer eye to eye. I mean, if we could have all of our conversations face to face and eye to eye, we'd, as a school district, as a community, as a country, we'd be better off. But unfortunately, that in today's day and age, a lot of stuff is happening electronically. But teaching that empathy is such an important component to what we do here. And going back to the menu, having Josiah here is really jump starting the future. And again, I use that term voltage drop. I don't know if you've had a chance to read Tom's article that he wrote on voltage drop, but it really spoke to me. And it happens so often in so many places, but education in particular, we hit teachers with something that they find exciting and that they find appealing and they want to be a part of, but then we as the leaders in the district fail to deliver that to them on a regular enough basis, and innately that's going to drop off and it's going to lose its steam, and then people are going to become uninterested. And I think that's the point of to me anyways, the community ambassador program is to have somebody from their team here to assist us, because we are busy doing a lot of different things, to keep that energy up and to reach as many students and staff as possible. And we want to just continue to expand upon that. We're offering a credit-bearing course this year. And I'm not going to hit them all, but I say it all the time. I'm envious of the work that's been done in Peru. I think Matt Berry is an amazing building leader and an amazing administrator. That is, they can't put a price on what Matt Berry means to Peru.
Yeah.
And some other districts like Ticonderoga, for example, and our involvement in the summit in Vermont last summer or just before the school year was really a game changer for, I think, us to be a part of, and seeing what some other school districts were doing and the few years that they were ahead of us. And imitation is the greatest form of flattery, right? We say it all the time. And I've said to Tom repeatedly, I want to do what Peru is doing. I want to do what Ticonderoga is doing, and I want to build that program. So now we have this credit-bearing course, the Brave Leadership course, and we have kids in that course, and they're being taught by two wonderful educators here that are working closely with Tom and his team to build that class up. And I think the expansion we want to see is, multiple levels and layers of that class moving forward. We want those high school students to be able to be in our elementary school, meeting with our elementary students, leading assemblies, eventually leading circles, where you have high school students being the facilitator and the leader of that circle, because the young kids look up to these kids. And the great thing about the program is we're not handpicking necessarily, your athletes all the time. It's nice because they have just natural leadership capabilities that they're instilled in them. But you're finding kids that maybe you never thought in a million years that you looked at a student and thought that kid has it in him to be that leader, to be that role model to kids in our elementary school. And you're seeing those kids develop, and I think you're giving them an opportunity to do something they never saw in front of them, and I think that's powerful. So really, I just, I don't have the whole, certainly not going to act like I have the whole Sweethearts and Things Heroes program figured out. And that's why I rely so heavily on people like Tom and Winton and Josiah and Pat and the whole team. I mean, you started mentioning some people. Every single person that I come across that wears a Free Hug shirt or wears a Sweethearts and Heroes shirt turns out to just be an amazing human being that I would love to have in my personal life. I would love to have in my professional life. And it never ends. And I think that's the beauty in it. And if you need something, there's always somebody there to answer your questions. But you know, I've always said too, one of the things about Tom, if you really want to be part of the Sweethearts and Heroes program and part of the team, the beauty in it is their goal is to make you as self-sufficient as possible and to really teach you the program and allow you to go do the program so that, and the beauty in that is Tom can be out reaching as many students and staff as he can,
Sure.
understanding that he has given us the tools to put in our toolbox to be able to successfully implement the program here without him always having to be here and having him always have his hands on it. And that's the beauty of it. And as a superintendent, you talk about budgets. The beautiful thing is you can start doing this as much as you can on your own and bring in their team to support you when needed. It doesn't become a budgetary hardship. It's something that you can sustain, and never felt like it was a money grab ever. It's never even in consideration. So,
Sure.
the menu to me is endless. There's so many things we can do with this, and I just want to keep leaning on Tom and his team and Josiah in particular for being here once a week to continue to expand the program and reach as many of our students and staff as we can.
Yeah. How about these powerhouse books, 13 Pillows for Effective Teachers, A Bridge Named Amos, Boredom School, which you've read. We're showing a picture of you right now holding that book. I mean, these guys, if you haven't picked up one of these books, especially if you're a teacher and you haven't read 13 Pillows yet, it's a must.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And Tom is gracious enough to make these things, if not free, extremely easy to purchase, to get in the hands. But he makes the ebook free. I know a lot of our staff have read it. We've sent it out multiple times, and I've had people reaching out to me and saying how powerful it was for them to experience that as well. Tom's offered book studies that we haven't yet taken him up on, but I think with the momentum that we're seeing, especially now after our opening day program, I think the time is ripe to start offering those opportunities for Tom to jump on and do book studies with our staff. Rick came here last year. We were lucky enough. We have a wonderful art teacher, Kevin Cannon, that did an unbelievable job illustrating Bridge Named Amos. And Rick and Kevin kind of sat in front of our students last year. That was actually the day I took the picture, and kind of read the book and went through the book. And the kids loved it. I mean, they ate it up, and having it available to them is really powerful. So it's just, you can go on, right? I mean, we could sit here literally all day long and talk about what this program has to offer and the dedication that all of this Tom's team shows to the districts that are willing to work with them. You could go on because their menu is whatever you want it to be. And that's one of the things I love about working with them is there's a lot of, what do you want? Not here's what we do and here's what you have to do for us. It's what do you need from us? What do you want from us?
Sure.
And what else do you want from a partner? Right.
Right next to you, Mike Lewis, your resource officer there at one of your schools. And I want to ask you both this, and we'll close out with the B word this morning, which is so huge. And, you mentioned social media earlier. And, I mean, yeah, we could sit and talk about all the great things that social media do in terms of connectivity.
Yep.
But I'm sure the three of us can't imagine being in school, middle school, high school, and having a phone that I'm emphasizing the word can, be so destructive to the messages that we read. When you guys and I were in school, maybe we got picked on a little bit, but maybe we settled it there. Maybe we had some adults in our lives that got involved. But now there's some under the radar stuff that's going on, and it's huge. And sometimes, probably more often than not, you can't see bullying. You can't even smell bullying. It's well disguised in some instances. Tom's got his stop, drop, and roll of bullying. He's presented this to almost 3 million students in school districts across New England, Hawaii, even into Canada. How are you guys dealing, both of you, with bullying? Is it an epidemic?
Well, I think I'll go first. I think you hit the nail on the head. I mean, my biggest concern, and you mentioned like us being back in middle school. I went to Johnstown school district, and just right around the corner from here. And I remember being in middle school, and I don't mean this as making it sound violent, but your problems in middle school were often solved on the tennis courts at recess.
Sure.
Like
Sure.
99% of the time, I'll be honest, it's a great school district. It was involved talking those problems out. And here, I would say during the day, particularly now that they don't have their cell phones in their hands during the day, they're coming to us. And I think those relationships that we're building and the trust, the kids are willing to come to us during the day to allow us to get involved and to intervene when it comes to those types of situations. What concerns me is the kids sitting at home in their bedroom by themselves at 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night.
Exactly.
And they get a message on their phone that basically tells them something terrible, tells them that they should kill themselves. And the resource, meaning us, we're not readily available to them. They don't think we are anyways right at that time. And how do we as school districts bridge that gap, whether it be the superintendent, the principal, the SRO, the teachers, the parents, which play a huge factor in this? How do you bridge that gap to make sure that that kid feels like they have the same resources available to them sitting alone in their bedroom at night when they get this message that they do if they receive it at 10 o'clock in the morning when they're here at school? And we talk a lot about here about eventually I want to expose this as much as possible to our parents and the power of circle. And yeah, that circle might be really small. It might be a mom and a dad or a grandparent or, an aunt or uncle or a brother and sister. But how do we make sure that those kids understand that the power of circle and the impact of having those conversations, as Mike, spoke to the importance of communication? How do we get them to feel comfortable to go to someone and to talk about that with them, no matter where they are, so that they don't feel alone, they don't feel trapped, and then they don't do something horrific that then causes a tragedy? I think that's the gap we need to bridge. It's a very difficult, thing to accomplish, but I think that has to be part of our teaching, because if we look at it as we have a wonderful program that we're partners in, and we do a really good job of it between 7:30 and 3:30, and it just stops there, I think we're missing something. I think it's how do we expand this message and this feeling of communication and empathy to make sure that those kids always feel they have an outlet, because I think that's going to be their savior. And just knowing that they have someone at all times that is going to be there for them to answer those questions, I think that's the key.
Yeah, I mean, here it is, National Suicide Prevention Month. Still.
Yep.
Mike Lewis, what say you about bullying?
Well, I came, and again, I started this, it'll say phase 2 of my career about the same time Sweethearts and Heroes started to come in. So it would be foolish of me to tell you what it was like prior to me, because I honestly don't know. And it would also be foolish of me to tell you that I don't believe that there's bullying going on. I'm sure there's bullying going on. It may not always, like Super says, it may not always get to us. It's that outreach that we're trying to get to. Phones, I've gone 180 degrees on phones in the last, 15, 20 years. I was flat out against them, and then I was all for them, and now I'm going back the other way. Until New York State came through and said no phones in schools. I guess I didn't realize how big of a problem it was until it wasn't. I'd like to think a lot of our problems, and I truly believe this, a lot of our problems have died down this year. So maybe it was a phone issue more so than I ever believed in. But it's the Sweethearts and Heroes program that's that's twofold, and again, I go back, I don't want to keep circling back to communication, but it's Sweethearts and Heroes teaching us to communicate and teaching students to communicate and teaching adults to communicate. And it's helping, and I just thought of this sitting here listening. I think what it's teaching is it's helping us understand why and the power of why. And it's when we have a problem and you look at an issue, whether, regardless of where it is, I think you need to understand why it's a problem and how it's caused before you can truly fix it. You know, trying to, trying to address an issue without fixing it from happening again. Are you really fixing something, or you're just kicking the can down the road? So, I think the Sweethearts and Heroes program, teaching kids to communicate and relearning, I guess, how to communicate, is helping us understand the whys in the world. And it's, why is Adam doing this, and why is Mike doing this? If we don't help the student battle the why, what are we really doing? If we're going to keep letting it reoccur, I think that's what it's doing. It's teaching our youth to tell us why they're having the problems. Not so much what the problem is, but what's causing the problem, so we can fix the cause as well.
And JD, if you don't mind, I'm listening to Mike talk. Mike does a wonderful job, and it's because of the kind of man he is, of downplaying how important his role is, both in title and the person behind the work being done. But, I've been here 10 years, and I remember, before we had an SRO program, before Sweethearts and Heroes, you always have those few kids. And we're a small district, roughly 700 students, district-wide, about 350, 375 in our 7 through 12 building. You would get those kids that would come through that were your tough kids, right? They're just not making good decisions. They're not making good choices. And what is the typical reaction of a school district? You focus on that kid, you put your thumb down on that kid, and what usually ends up happening is that kid is suspended, or that kid is sent to alternative school or something along those lines, because you feel overwhelmed as administrators. You got a bunch of problems you're dealing, and it's almost like, geez, this kid's just difficult. He can't be reached. She can't be reached. And you just come up, you get to that perspective. And I think that's a big word that Tom uses all the time, is putting things in perspective. But the thing that Mike has been able to do here is to actually build relationships with those kids. And now you're seeing those kids start to be good influencers in some ways in the building. And they might not always make good decisions, but they're talking to Officer Lewis, and they're talking to their administration. And the beauty of him is he's not a suit. Like I often, superintendent and principal, we're the suit, we're the punishers. He's there to lend an ear and to listen to kids. And I'm watching him not only build relationships with these kids, but to watch these kids have that belief and the feeling in them that they have a chance, and that the district is not just going to treat them as, a problem child that they're just going to throw punitive action at. We're giving them outlets to do things. So I certainly don't want to see him downplay his role. And, I focus on the impact of that. We had a student 2 weeks ago that, fell in the hallway. She falls down, books go flying. And I'll be honest with you, in my time in this district years ago, I would see a lot of different things in the video that we replay on that. I would see laughter. I would see finger pointing. I would see kids, chuckle and just keep walking. You wouldn't believe what we saw on video. The reaction was, when I say 100%, every single kid that was in the vicinity stopped, helped, showed concern, showed compassion, showed empathy for that child, and not only helped them back to their feet, helped them pick their stuff up. And then you watch the players in the video, and you see the certain amount of kids that you would have expected to, at the very minimum, ignore the situation and just kind of chuckle and keep walking. Didn't happen. They stopped. They helped. They showed empathy. And, you hope that small situations like that are just proof that we're making a difference. And I think a lot of that has to do with the program, and a lot of that has to do with what Officer Lewis is doing, even as something as simple as the tennis ball. You show a kid enough time to toss a tennis ball with him, that kid might be just willing to help to take his time to help pick up a kid's books that just fell on the ground. It's pretty powerful.
Thank you both ever so much for joining me this morning. Appreciate you.
We appreciate you having us. We're honored to be on.